Hello, I'm Jake Boudrot, Civic Journalist at Community Television. With me today is the NDP candidate for the riding of Richmond. Welcome to Marc Currie.
I'm happy to be here. Hopefully we'll increase the ratings so that your budget will go up and be able to reach a larger audience.
I guess the best place to start would be maybe have you talk a bit about yourself.
Mostly English. I do speak a little bit of French. 62. I was born in Montreal, or so my parents tell me. I was too young to remember it. I've lived in 4 different provinces, Quebec, Ontario, Newfoundland and Labrador, and now Nova Scotia. I'm kind of a dull and boring person. I like to read and take walks and bicycle rides, and generally quiet.
What in your life experiences and the skills you've acquired over your lifetime, what do you think makes you a good fit to be the MLA for Richmond?
I suppose I have a few things in my resume that might be suitable. From the NDP perspective, I was a union steward when I was working in water and sewage treatment plants. Blue collar, but you get used to organizing and talking to people and having negotiations with bosses that have a different point of view, of course. But a lot of the things that I think will make me good are really because I'm not really all that exciting. I read things through, and I make my own judgments on them, which is one of the reasons why I decided to run. I've been reading some stuff that this government has been doing that I think should not be done. So here I am.
And you mentioned that there's some things that you've been reading about this current government that you don't like. So maybe you can elaborate that on, because I was going to ask you why you decided to run, and that was something as you said is a factor. So maybe you want to explain that a little.
Sure. In the past, for example, when the NDP was in power, I would write letters to the MLA or to the ministers about issues that I wanted to point out. And I would always get a response back, which would be dated and signed. The Liberal government, again, I did the same thing, wrote them letters through Canada Post, and the responses would be coming back dated and signed. The last couple of letters that I wrote to this current government, I did get a response, but they were not dated and signed, which means in today's age of computerized printers and everything, there's no way I could show it to somebody and say this was an official government response. That raised one of my alarm flags, I guess. Why would the government suddenly not want to sign a piece of paper, which is usually delegated to a civil servant in the first place? That was a worrying thing. Then I was reading, certain legislation, which when I talked to others about it, they really didn't know what I was talking about, because who spends their time reading legislation? Almost nobody. I did, for example, read the Nova Scotia Elections Act. Most of the act is straightforward, reporting requirements, the nomination forms, spending limits. All of this stuff makes sense, but I came across one item in Article 339, which to me seemed to be something that shouldn't be there. There's reasons for it to be there. I can understand the politicians that are in charge of the government wanting it there, but I don't see as how the people in Nova Scotia would want it there. And I did a quick printout to make sure that I got it right. It's from the Nova Scotia Elections Act. It's from the electronic web page, where they put this little warning on saying, hey, this is not the official source. Please go to the official source if it's vitally important. But they try their best to make sure that there's no spelling errors. I'd like to read it out. It's offenses by candidate, Article 339, open bracket 1, close bracket. Every prospective candidate or candidate is guilty of an offense who, comma, during an election, comma, open bracket A, close bracket, agrees at the request of any person to follow a course of action that will prevent the prospective candidate or candidate from exercising freedom of action in the House of Assembly, or to resign therefrom if called upon by any person. The article goes on to list other things, of course, but that was the thing that really raised my attention. It's only an offense during an election. Before an election, after an election, the candidate or prospective candidate can make all sorts of agreements, but it's only during an election when candidates are coming to people saying, vote for me, that we as candidates cannot make a legally binding commitment. Kind of anti-democratic, in my opinion. So that's a big thing that I wanted to let people know about, and if they agree that this should not be there, maybe after the election they should write people and say, why is this here? It's up to them, of course.
Why do you see that as undemocratic, maybe?
Because before an election, the candidate or prospective candidate can make commitments to act a certain way. But they're not usually making a commitment before the election to the general constituents. They're making a commitment to somebody else. Whoever else it is, nobody knows, it's kind of secret. So the only time where they can't do it is right now, during election. I cannot make a legally binding commitment to you to vote a certain way. Voting on removing the taxes from feminine napkins or whatever. It's not legal. It's an offense under the Act. I think it should not be an offense under the Act.
So maybe you explained why you're running. Maybe you can talk about why you decided to run for the NDP as a candidate in Richmond.
It was a kind of a last-minute thing. The NDP was going around looking for candidates, and they were in discussion. They have their vetting process, but they were worried about the early election. They saw the signals and they started looking. But when the election was actually called, they didn't have anybody in this riding yet lined up. And they asked me if I would do that. And since I think that, well, the labor relations with the NDP are sufficiently good, that the labor aspect of the other parties, they don't have good linkages with labor to represent them as well as the NDP. So I thought I would do it.
So as you see it right now, within this riding, which is protected Acadian riding, that includes all of the municipality of the county of Richmond, what do you see as the major issues facing this riding?
The major issues are pretty much the same across the province. Nobody wants to lose their muffler in a pothole in springtime. It's very expensive. Everybody wants good roads, good hospital care, and taxes that are reasonable. Of course, there is the emergency room issue with the Strait Regional Hospital. It has been mentioned several times, and it's been going on for quite a while. So we have an election here, and maybe if Trevor Boudrot is not the candidate to get the situation fixed, this is the chance to voice an opinion that says, hey, we're going to get you out and we're going to get somebody else in to see if somebody else can fix it. The list of major situations that need to be fixed, well, that's ongoing. The NDP is going to try its best. Hopefully we'll get in. Admittedly, the popularity for this particular riding does not seem that I'll get in, but maybe in a couple more elections.
If you are elected to be the MLA for Richmond, what are your priorities in the coming term?
Well, my personal priorities are slightly different than the NDP's. I would like to attack government secrecy. Why are they not signing letters? That's one of the issues. It's a very minor one, but it indicates that they're doing things differently, secretly. There are a whole bunch of bits of legislation that I've been mentioning to other people. Again, because I read things and I'm dull and boring, I read legislation, and they don't. For example, one thing that they've come up with oddly enough through various committees, is called the Dismantling Racism and Hate Act. Nobody's going to be opposed to dismantling racism and hate, neither am I. But the way they're doing it is that they have called for a study to be done through the Office of Equity and Anti-Racism Initiatives, and they have produced a list of definitions of various racisms, and I think that they're using those definitions to change all of the hiring practices in the province. The thing is that the Act itself says that the minister can prescribe various organizations and to follow all of these rules. The ones so far that he's prescribed are the municipal governments, cities, towns, villages, county councils. But also in the Act it says that they want you to put these action plans in place following the prescribed forms, meaning the forms that are in the regulations. And so far, there aren't any forms in the regulations as of a couple of weeks ago. So it's something that they're going to, I guess, spring on people as to how they have to do it and in what form. The fact that it's not in the regulations, but it's in this report that I think that they're using to change all of the hiring practices is a bit disturbing. One of the things that they want to change, or seem to want to change, pardon me, seem to want to change, I should say, is that they want a little something called ableism to be considered a definition of hate. And ableism means, under their definition, pardon me, ableism, it's a very long thing. Ableism is a belief system that throughout history has marginalized, dehumanized, and devalued persons with disabilities, diagnosed or undiagnosed, people perceived to have a disability, or people who are viewed as abnormal or less than based on a difference in body or mind. It often rests on the assumption that people with disabilities are inferior and need to be fixed, rehabilitated, or adapted to fit in. And it defines people only by their disability. Ableism is the unfounded valuation of able-bodiedness and able-mindedness over bodies deemed other in any way. Ableist attitudes are responsible for the disabling social, economic, political, and/or environmental barriers in society that limit opportunities for persons with disabilities to live and participate fully in society. That sounds wonderful. If they're turning around and saying ableism is something that you have to take into account in all aspects of hiring for the government, well, the medical system has a whole bunch of positions where, for example, if somebody faints at the sight of blood, you don't want a surgeon to be fainting at the sight of blood if you're on the operating table. Also, if you're responding in emergencies, fire departments, ambulance, police, they quite often see situations where, well, it's pretty gory. So if you've got somebody employed who has a phobia about blood, they're going to cause more problems than they solve, in my estimation. Oddly enough, the NDP has not made an official policy on this, so I am speaking as a this is my personal opinion. Although it would come into account if I was, of course, MLA, I would voice these objections. There are certain things, for example, able-bodiedness. If you're in a confined space entry team, a lot of people wonder, why are there so many people standing around at the top of the hole looking in? Because labor law has been set up to mandate that 2 people have to be up for every worker in the hole or in the confined space, whichever it is. That's because in the past there have been accidents and people down there, they died. So the labor laws have changed. You've got to have people that can pull them up. And those people have to be able-bodied. You can't have somebody who's, oh dear, I've got a bad back, because the worker in danger would die. Again, I don't know how the actual implementation of these definitions is happening, because it's all happening through the human resource departments, through policy changes, through action plans, and I can't find any indication of what they are. So that's why I'm raising this alarm flag. There's a lot of things going on in the medical field that are kind of rigid. One of the things that I learned during COVID was that a lot of the bureaucracy in the medical field, they got an order, they followed it. There was almost nobody questioning what they should or should not do. And this rigidity in the medical industry may be just not the best for Nova Scotians. The reason I'm saying this is because there were all sorts of people from around the world during COVID saying, hey, I found something. This will help. And it didn't get really discussed. It was very rigid. Medical establishments said, okay, wait for the injection. And these other possibilities were bypassed. And I have a concern in the medical field that we can be helping out a lot in terms of prevention. If people, for example, myself, I'm substantially overweight, I need to realize that I should diet a little bit. But it's kind of hard when everything around you is so tasty and readily available. I'm thinking that maybe similar to what we have done with cigarettes, we put warning labels on them. I don't know if this would work or be accepted or whatever, but how about a small warning label on bags of sugar or cookies saying, too much sugar is bad for us. A little bit of prevention. And it also goes towards all aspects of our diets. I've read studies that indicate that, for example, a substantial number of people, especially in the winter, we don't get enough vitamin D. And some doctors do say, okay, your vitamin D levels are too low in your blood test, take this. And they'll actually tell you to take vitamin D. But not necessarily everybody knows this with, what is it, 30% of the people in Nova Scotia without a doctor? So maybe some pronouncements from the Chief Medical Officer of Health saying, hey, if you don't know if you're getting enough vitamin D, maybe this type of food or that type of supplement will help. But I don't hear things like that with regard to dieting, or diets, I should say. Another relatively common phenomenon in wintertime and amongst certain economic classes is we don't get enough zinc. Zinc apparently is something that we get mostly through meat. Poor people on a budget, sometimes they don't get enough meat, they don't get enough zinc. Zinc and vitamin D are both essential for our immune systems. So if a program were to start up to help people either with supplements or perhaps a voucher to buy meat at the store for people who are economically stressed or have a prescription from the doctor or a nutritionist, they could increase the strength of their immune system and in the long run take stress off of our medical system.
I know that you recently announced that you're a candidate for the NDP here in Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
So how have you been spending your time on the campaign trail, and what are your plans for the days, I guess, right now ahead?
It's been off to a little bit of a shaky start. There's been a little bit of a glitch with getting the paperwork for setting up the bank account. The returning officer has to sign a form. You have to take that to the bank and get it all set up and whatnot. So we haven't set up the bank account quite yet. So that's really limiting what I can do because you're not allowed to do things except through your official agent. So it's I'm going to keep pushing and trying and do a little bit of phone calling and say, hi, I'm me, and I'm running in the riding, and we'll do what we can with what we've got.
I appreciate you coming in today and answering my questions and speaking with our viewers. I know you're a busy man, and thank you very much.
Oh, My pleasure. Thanks for having me.